Ado's playfulness and freedom with her voice seems to be endlessly inspiring. I can't believe how much I've learned about my own voice in the past few months since getting into her music. Let's see what she's created with her version of TK's Unravel. And we have the opportunity to compare and contrast with her live version, which I still have not heard.
教えてよその仕組みを僕の中に誰かいるの壊れたよこの世界で君が笑う何も見ずに
Okay, before we get into the heavier part, I just have to say, this is yet another flavor that I have yet to hear her really dive into until now. This subdued, raspy, desperate, quiet. This is almost a whisper sing.
教えてよその仕組みを僕の中に
This is the result of intentionally letting air pass through your voice. What's interesting about Ado's approach here is that she's not trying to do it by whispering. It's easy to tense up and seem really unnatural and pretentious when doing this kind of singing. But if you do it by first thinking about moderating your breath pressure, like how much you're pushing, rather than simply just trying to sing quietly, it will be more natural. And this is what Ado is doing so well here. So the band gets real huge. She shows a ton of restraint, at least right there. There's no unleashing of playful Ado yet. And then she comes back down to her introspective little shell. If you'd like to explore this level of vocal freedom in your own voice, click the link below and join my free course. And I'll help you move past striving and comparison with your voice, and maybe not liking it so much, to true vocal freedom. Click that link below in the comments or the video description. Hear how her intensity's building, even in the midst of this whisper sort of timbre? Yes! Gotta hear that transition again. I gotta hear that whole section again. There is so much going on with her vocal weight, because this melody has a wide range and she's doing a fantastic job assigning characteristics to each note. That's partially why we love Ado's performances so much. It's not like she's plowing through this melody. She has a relationship with the way each note feels, and it gives us a special relationship with this melody and this performance. Okay, right there. Listen to her sighs in and out of this aggressive, belty chest voice. And then, of course, there's a harmony around it, but the high point of the melody is so much lighter. She could belt it, she could reach for it, but she doesn't. She puts all the weight at the bottom of this melody and then feathers up to it. Sighs at the beginning of every one of those notes. She is not locking herself into loud volume, as we can tell by her kissing those higher notes, but also in her lower notes, creating liquidity and accessibility with her voice. And then she has the whisper sing and then goes back right to her belt. Beautiful. A student of mine, Jonathan Tan, sang this in one of my group coaching sessions. That needs to be broken down. Listen to how she grows in intensity, and simultaneously, we get a sense that her voice is falling apart into desperation. This is a very specific technique that, if honed, can create the auditory illusion that everything is falling apart with your voice and you're completely losing control, when in fact, you are creating this desperate aggression and you have complete control over it. Okay, remember I talked so much about the importance of sighing? We use sighing with that cool screamy sound she had later. Get used to that feeling of sort of sighing into notes. Then she's using that compression, lifting something heavy. This desk is heavy. I'm gonna keep talking. A little grit. See, if I combine the sigh with that holding back air, I get this aggressive, gritty sound, but it still sounds desperate. That's what she's doing here. And then there's another step. You hear the sigh at the beginning of every one of those compressed notes. Let's get there. It's this really broken up sound, and you actually hear a little bit of pitch in her voice there. What's happening here is we've exaggerated and caught the sigh on its way down. It's talking unraveling, 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 unraveling world. It's talking unraveling world. This isn't as hard as you might think if you can let go, if you can sigh and release into your voice as it goes down from head voice to chest voice, and then catch the breakup rather than shying away from the breakup. Unraveling, sigh, sigh, catch the sigh. This stuff is so much fun to hear in a vocalist like Ado. This is techniques that, metal vocalists, deathcore, all these guys use, and to have her show this side of her vocalizations is just mind-blowing and so fun. Unraveling the world. The world! Nice to hear some unraveled, unhinged musical articulations there, too. Wow. Do you hear in this section how many breaths she takes? She doesn't have to breathe that much. She's using musical, what I call circular breathing. Da 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 da. Her breath is part of the rhythm of the line. She's sneaking behind you, sneaking up behind you. Da, 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 da. Ah! I can't get over the variety of her vocal weight. That was a really good example. I'm pointing this out with my hands the whole time, but I had to do that with my voice. So light and then heavy. If you sing, this is a masterclass in learning how to handle your voice. The more variety you are able to pump into your performances, the more variations in vocal weight that you have, the freer you're going to be. So in other words, you pursue freedom rather than accuracy or goodness, and then your freedom leads you to the very goodness that you wanted. She keeps getting lighter on that high note and heavier on the lower note. Back to the beginning. Hear that? The breath after the note? Beautiful, just beautiful. All right, let's see how she pulled this off live. You've got to be able to hear yourself really well to do that same whisper singing live. To have that nuance in your voice with all that other stuff going on is very difficult. You'd think that she'd have to put more vocal weight in there, but she's every bit as light from what I can hear so far. there's almost a bit more desperation and more sigh here. You can already hear her playing off of the energy of the live performance on this melody. That's fun to hear. She's like slide. There's this slide that's happening there that's longing. There's this unhinged version of her that's above and beyond what I just heard on the studio recording. She's doing all the same stuff, but with more contrast, more desperation. I know I've just used that word, but... You almost hear this like grunt at the end, at the beginning there. Gerard Way does that. You hear all the chirps and sighs that I talked about, but then she's grounding in this almost, it's not nervous as in like self-conscious nervous, but there's this like pent up energy. And even when she goes up to that thinner weight up there, there's this quiver to it. That powerful belt in the midst of all these other higher side, quivery. There's vulnerability here, yet confidence. You don't get that kind of belty existence in the presence of all these other things very often. It takes a special singer to be able to go in and out of this type of resonant shifts. Now, what's really interesting here about that section, she's doing a bit of budgeting there. She just came from big belts! And then she brings it down a little bit vocally. Just for that little section there, this was present somewhat in the studio recording, but you can tell she's dialing up the contrast between her very intense persona and she's borrowing from a bit of the postures in the intro in this section as a pacing mechanism, because she's doing this and other songs live. She hides it well. She's both creating a budget and and pacing opportunity for herself, but also creating interesting dynamics with her voice at the same time. Great vocalists can do both at the same time and have you forget that they're actual humans singing that need to pace themselves. Sick bass line. Not only did she pull it off live, but there is an extra bit of in there. Let's listen to that again. Oh, wow. I like that version better, even though the other one is more produced and it's also more tame. Again, those sighs, not locking herself into one particular posture and energy level with her voice. That's so key as she builds into this. Her breaths definitely sound more necessary there as she's building there so that she has enough support to give us that scream. She comes unhinged earlier there, and you can hear the very technique being dialed in as she's doing it, which is very typical of this technique live. You hear more of those chirps. Remember how I said earlier that this technique, this brutal scream, comes from sighing, and so you may hear some voice cracks in there as you're dialing it in. You can hear voice cracks here, but because she's leaning in, it doesn't sound like an oops voice crack. It actually adds to the blistering vulnerability and terror that she's communicating. It's absolutely amazing. You hear the transition between the sigh. You hear that transition happen there. It goes from these heavy breathing sighs, to the scream. And then you hear at the very end, the delay catches it. You hear her true chords still there. They're removed and then they're put back, and that's why you have this. It's not a voiceless scream. It absolutely is a sound only Ado can make because it includes both the desperate false chord engagement brought about by those sighs and her primary chords engaging. At the very end there, there's a sigh out of it, and there's multiple sighs into it. This was so cool to just having heard the more curated version, although an awesome performance in the studio version, and then to hear her raw approach, it gives you even more insight into how she gets there. Great guitar playing. That distortion was much more based on that sigh version as well, as opposed to just the compressed version that we were talking about earlier. Also, listen to her breathing. She does a good job here of making that breathing rhythmic, although you can tell it's tougher for her, understandably so. However, the fact that it sounds more difficult engages me even more as a listener, especially having just heard the studio recording. That needs to be talked about. So it's getting towards the end-ish of the song, and she's so intense that her voice is breaking up in a very pleasant yet still brutal way, and she's not backing down. This is the mark of a true performer and a true singer. Her voice sounds like it's giving out. It's not giving out, but it is behaving in maybe a slightly not quite understood or unexpected way for Ado as she's performing in the moment. But she's leaning into what her voice is doing in the moment, as opposed to going, oh, that's more broken up than I intended it to be. This take shot. I'm not going to, you don't have that decision live to make. You have to lean into what your voice is doing, and she's a master at doing that. Is it unexpected? Is it creating unexpected results? Maybe, but the fact that she's leaning into it actually just makes it even cooler. Listen. How her voice breaks up there, and she loses, you can tell there's no pitch correction on this. She loses the planned pitches that were so meticulously crafted in the studio take, but instead we hear rawness and an embracing of the imperfection because of the energy of the live performance, and it creates an extra bit of cool screamy sounds here. You don't get that by being shy. You don't get that by trying to be perfect or trying to replicate a studio performance or be good. You get it by being you and being fully immersed in the moment and embracing the now. There was that nice clean compression, or gritty compression. I think we're about to hear more screaming. Hear how she's going from that pure head voice to the contrast she's pulling out of her voice. Put yourself up in that head voice. And then inch downward into that sigh. With the right practice, with the right type of accepting the sensations that happen and leaning into them, it's possible. She's making it seem like magic. It's not magic, but it's close. The fact that she can go from that clean to the clean scream is just so cool to hear. You don't hear many vocalists do that unless they're highly trained metal singers, and she's got it. She's got the technique. And there, in the midst of all the other things she's doing, there's a nice healthy growl. It's just for a split second. Lower placed grit. Wow, am I glad I did these both in the same video. Thank you for this suggestion. Again, if you'd like more help finding freedom with your own voice so that you can begin to approach the level of playfulness and variety that Ado just continues to display with her own voice, click that link below and join my free course in the comments or the video description. Again, we'll see you for more.